A true pro-life journey from poverty to the C-suite. That's the focus of today's Faith and Culture. Stick with us. Welcome to Faith and Culture. I'm your host, Tré Goins-Phillips, and we're joined by our guest today, Don Cazedessus. Don, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Oh, I am so excited to be here, Tré. It's truly an honor. Very good.
Well, it's good to have you with us, and you have an incredible life journey, as you put it, from the trailer park to the C-suite. So tell us a bit about your background. What was life like growing up for you?
Yeah. So I am actually the product of a 15-year-old teenage pregnancy. My mom was 15 years old when she conceived me and turned 16 actually 2 weeks before I was born. So as the statistics tell us and show us is that teenage pregnancies usually lead to a life of poverty and hardship. And we fit right in to that stat. And so straight into the trailer park we went and rented into the trailer park for many, many, many years of growing up into that. And so it was just a life of just hardship, and trying to overcome. I will just say that, I just got to see people constantly trying to overcome their situations. But as you can imagine, that trailer park is filled with abuse and addictions and some of the things that we see in poverty. And so as I witnessed that and navigated that all the way through my senior year of high school, where my dad passed away my senior year, I realized that the only way that I was going to be the overcomer of the trailer park was to get out of there. And so I was the first one to go to the university, to go and get a degree and to be able to change what I like to say now today, the family tree.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible story, and one that I know was certainly full, as you just kind of laid out there, was full of trials and difficulty, but really a pro-life success, right? Somebody who, it could have gone one way, and your mother chose not to pursue abortion, and she chose to keep you, but life was still full of incredible hardship. So talk about your encounter with the Lord. When was your first encounter with the Lord? How did faith kind of help to shape who you ultimately became?
Yeah. Tré, I love this question because often people think, and for some people, maybe this is the case, that God just shows up one day. And then that one day, and sometimes it's that emotional response at a big worship service, or one person sat and knee with them and they had an encounter with the Lord. But what I have seen to be true, more so in my life, is that he was with me all through my life. And so when I looked back and reflected over my life, I saw where God was showing up over and over again, even in the trials, even in the hardships. And so I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand what that word peace even looked like because I was living in chaos. But it was actually my senior year of college. And I would have told you I was a Christian. I believed in God and I was doing good things. But it was my senior year of college where I really went into a college and career Bible study small group. And in that small group, started hearing scripture differently. And of course, God was working even harder on my heart. And it was February of 1997 when I like to say that I truly surrendered all of the trailer park. I surrendered all of the shame. I stopped trying to work my way through life. And I just decided, you know what? God has got to take control of this if I'm going to really be the overcomer of what the past was. And so it was that moment that I surrendered my life and invited Christ into my heart. And as we know, that is a new life-changing moment. I was a new creation in that moment because from that point till today, what I work on is what we know in Romans is a renewing of the mind. I work daily to renew this mind, to be more Christ-like so that he can use me to fulfill me for that purpose. Because Tré, you also mentioned that my mom made a very hard, important decision that I'm so grateful for today, because when she was pregnant with me, she had three options, actually. She had the option of keeping me, the option of abortion, and the option of adoption, giving me up for adoption. And interestingly enough, the same time that my mom at 15 was pregnant, her 1 year older sister, age of 16, was also pregnant. And so two of these young ladies are sitting there with a difficult choice. My mom chose to keep me, and I'm so grateful, even with all the hardship that came with that she decided to do that, where I would say my cousin that was born was given up for adoption into the family, but given up. And so we got, I got to see two different paths of people from that choice. And I'm so grateful for that today, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think your testimony also highlights the value and the importance of the local church, just the Christian community that is there and just consistently showing up in people's lives and making a difference. But it's also easy to get kind of lost in that as somebody is unmoored and has questions and doesn't feel any sort of forward momentum. So for the person who's listening or watching and is thinking like, man, I feel completely stuck in the chaos, or I don't even feel like God hears me, God is listening, what practical steps of advice and wisdom would you give to them who they're saying, I really would like to see some forward momentum in my life, but I just don't see a way forward?
Yeah. Trey, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 day, 1 year, 1 week. We think we want to accomplish. We want that forward momentum to be big in the instance, right? Like right now, we want those results. And what we don't realize is that each day, and I write about this in the book, we are just to get up to get 1% better. 1%, and then it's like compound interest, right? And when we can move and have 1% movement, like literally just taking one step, it moves us in the right direction. See, growth is movement forward. Most people live in the world of complacency. They would never want to think that they're going backwards, and taking steps backward, but they live in complacency. And really what complacency is just a slow movement to death, right? And so what I like to encourage people is like, don't try to go like we kind of map out our lives and we want to be like way over here. And well, first of all, we don't even really know what God has for us over here. All he has called us to do is be in the present and take one step forward. So I tell people, like, don't be overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed by how big the decisions can be for you each and every day. Literally just take one step. And it's like, how do I get up today and be 1% better than what yesterday was?
I want to ask you, you've had so many different career moves. We were talking before we started recording about all the different fields that you have worked in and have had great success in them. But a lot of times, especially when you come from a place of poverty or you've had chaos in your life or different crises in your life, you can be filled with shame. And I think the enemy can use that shame to keep us trapped, or we can just use that shame to keep ourselves trapped. So how have you dealt with that? How did you overcome all of that to be the C-suite executive that you are today?
Yeah. The enemy loves to shackle us in our shame. And even when we move past it at times, it's amazing how he'll bring it up and just put those shackles back on us to hold us back. And shame was one of the reasons this book took so long to come out. And Trey, very transparently, whenever working with the publisher and my literary agent about the title of the book, and when we've landed on Trailer Park CEO, there was still a part of me was like, man, I'm trying to run from that trailer park at times still, right? And so the shame is real. And I think everyone experiences some form of shame in their life from decisions or things that have happened to them or where they've been. And so for me, I had to reframe my thinking because there's this imposter syndrome that shows up for a lot of us, unworthiness. So that shows up. And so for me, once I gave my life to Christ and decided that every day my life had to be for him, then I had to reframe how I looked at what I said yes to as a job. And so now people who know me, they know that every job that I take is not really a job, it's an assignment. Matter of fact, it is like that's why my resume is the way it is and where I've been, because when the Lord calls me onto the next assignment, even sometimes when I was like CEO of a hospital, like Lord, I think like I was being like Moses, like not me, send them. Like, there's no way. I can't speak hospital language. I don't know anything about the hospital. And God was just adamant, and He showed me, it's very clear to me. And as He often does, when I'm trying to be rebellious on my assignment, He will send someone, share a word, and when needed, knock me over my head to make sure that I stay in my assignment. Because what I know for myself is that when I am on my workplace assignment, in my workplace ministry, I get to wake up every day and live out my purpose and my calling. And so for me, I had to overcome a lot of shame and vulnerability and be very vulnerable in those moments of becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable things in my life because God had called me. So everything that I do, God has called me to it. And sometimes I've had delayed obedience, which is still disobedience. So I've had delayed obedience sometimes into those callings, Tré, and God just keeps rerouting me. Matter of fact, my next book, I'm calling it Rerouting, because God will reroute us as needed to fulfill His will and His plan and purpose for our lives. And for me, as the older I get, when He shows it, I just now obey.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have had such, like I said a moment ago, just such an incredible career. You've worked in the coffee business, you've run a hospital, you now work in real estate. So you've done really a little bit of everything, and we're going to get into some of that and how God first led you in that direction here in a couple minutes. But everybody, stick with us. We're going to fit in a quick break. Welcome back to Faith and Culture. We are joined by Don Cazedessus. Don, like we talked about just before the break, there have been so many different assignments that you said that the Lord has called you to, and your primary goal is to be obedient to where the Lord is calling you, not necessarily to chase that next promotion or that next opportunity just for your own fulfillment. But what did it look like when you first stepped into the corporate world? I mean, how did that transition happen that you felt God's preparing me for this?
Well, funny enough, when it first came, it was my first experience was right out of college. I had applied for a pharmaceutical rep job with the largest pharmaceutical company in the world at that time. And I remember having to go buy that first navy blue business suit and getting that pleather looking briefcase that I wanted to hop on this plane and go out and interview. And I remember sitting in that room, Tré, because when you're in the trailer park, you don't learn the skills that you need of speaking, eating at a nice restaurant, what fork to use and what glass is yours, which bread roll is yours, all of these things I was getting exposed. And I remember just the uncomfortableness, the unsettledness, like asking myself questions like, do I really belong here? But the bigger question that I always was asking myself as I was navigating these jobs was like, am I really ready for it? And I would start to say like, not yet. I'm not, I don't have all the skills yet that I need for this. I'm not quite prepared. And so when the Lord kept pushing me into these positions, I was like, Lord, I'm not equipped. You're calling the wrong person. I'm not equipped for this. And now, as I've learned in my study, God equips the call. Like He said, I'm testing your faith right now. I just need you to step into this because there's something that I need you to do. And I'll equip you when you get there. So for me, when I went into the corporate world, of course, you have this perception of it, that the TV perception that you learn. And then when you step into it, you're like, wow, this is a whole nother world. And I truly do not know what I'm doing. And it is amazing how God has equipped me. And each time that I've stepped and been obedient, He equips. He gives me the skills that I need, Tré.
Yeah. Often we see failure too as a negative thing. And when you're going in so many different directions and you're pursuing your career the way that you have, failure is just kind of an inevitability, right? And what I found so fascinating in your book and in some of the other interviews that you've done is you've kind of redefined how you see failure. So talk a little bit about that.
So failure is my favorite topic to talk about. It is the most painful topic for most people to experience. And there's also this thing out there, Trey, that we shouldn't fail. Like people are so scared, there's a big fear of failure, rejection, and even success. But in failure, I had to reframe it because I fail daily. Fail daily. And I was like, how am I going to move forward? So I had to change the way I was looking at failure. And what I've done is I took the word fail and I reframed it. And so F in the word fail is forgive. I had to start forgiving myself in those moments because I would make it like this big sin. And when I would just make mistakes and shame, the enemy would use shame to cripple me. So I have to forgive, like literally forgive and then accept it, not blame it, not push away, not ignore it. I had to accept it that it happened. And that allowed for me, once I accepted it, to go to what is the I in the word fail is inspect it. Now that I'm in a good frame of mind, let me inspect what happened. What patterns do I see in this? How did I make that decision? Was I hangry? Was I tired? What was going on in my world that led me to that decision? And that leads us to the L in fail, which is learn. Because in order to fail forward in life, we have to learn from these failing moments so that we don't repeat those behaviors. And so for me, once I started reframing the word fail and learning that all successful people fail. As a matter of fact, their successes is built on the bricks of all the failures in their life. And so we are not failure people. We are not, as a person, a failure. We learn to fail forward.
Mm, yeah, for sure. And another thing that I found fascinating in your book is you end it, and I will be completely transparent with a Louisiana word that I have no idea how to pronounce or what it means, other than you say in the title about the importance of generosity. So tell us a little bit about that word and about how good, godly servant leadership requires generosity of us.
Oh, I love this. So the Louisiana word, if you live in South Louisiana, you're going to experience lagniappe. And lagniappe means a little extra, a little bit more. Our listeners would probably recognize it as the baker's dozen. It's like a little bit extra. Well, lagniappe is such a beautiful word to show as God's generosity and abundance, that Ephesians 3:20 to us, right? Immeasurably more than we could imagine. So when I wrote the book, when we were looking at the stones with a publisher, my literary agent, the 12 stones were always part of my life. And in talking with them, I was like, gosh, I'm so blessed because of the generosity of people. The church came alongside our family, provided Christmas gifts, had teachers pay for things that I would have never been able to go to in leadership conferences. And so my whole life has just been extreme generosity given to me, which taught me how to be extremely generous myself. And so lagniappe stone in the book is generosity. And it is because when we do all of the other 12 stones, that gives us the ability to be extremely generous with the resource and the blessings that we have earned to be able to give. But it also reminds us that the most generous example is Jesus, and how he sacrificed his life for us. That is extreme generosity modeled for us.
Mm. You've seen that generosity from the Lord to you in your life, and you've been able to pass that generosity on to other people. So we started talking about your early life, right? Growing up in poverty to where you are now. So talk about how those relationships have been impacted, the relationships that you have with your family, with your community growing up. How have you been able to pour back into that community?
Yeah. So Rory Vaden with Brand Builders has a saying that you're positioned to serve the person that you once were. And I really thought about that statement, and I was like, the reason I wrote the book is because I wanted other people to see two things. One, good things can come from trailer parks. Good things can come out of poverty. And two is that no matter where you are in life, you don't have to be from a trailer park, but no matter where you are in life, there is a purpose and a calling on you, and good things can come from it. And so it's a message of hope. No matter what you're sitting in today, is that there is a purpose for it. And Romans 8:28 tells us that good will come out of it. And when I started studying scripture, and I was like, Lord, if good is supposed to come out of that trailer park where there was abuse, there was addictions, there was hurt, there was generational curses that were put. What good can come out of that? And when I started to see and take the scales off of my eyes through God's word, I started seeing all the good, Tré, that can come out of this. And so the book is a message of hope. No matter where you are, God can use it for good. And those relationships that you've had throughout your life are all planted for a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody stick with us. We're going to be right back with one more segment with Dawn. Welcome back into Faith and Culture. I'm here with Dawn Cazedessus. And Dawn, for people who want to pre-order a copy of Trailer Park CEO, or they want to follow along on your journey and learn more about the incredible work that you do and the incredible work that the Lord has done in your life, where can they go to learn more about you?
Well, the first place I would love to send them is the website for the book, and it is trailerparkceobook.com. And so that's a great place to start to learn more about me and the book. And then, of course, any of the social handles, Tré, I'm on. They could just go put my name in there and they'll find me. I would love to just be in collaboration and partnership with all of our listeners to encourage them and to be able to share these nuggets, these little stones that I've picked up along my life with them, to give them the hope that they need in order to fulfill their God-called purpose.
The book is Trailer Park CEO, 12 Leadership Cornerstones to Become a Godly Woman of Influence. We appreciate your time.
Oh, it's been an honor, Tré. Thank you.
All right, everybody, stick with us. We'll be right back to wrap up this week's episode. That is all the time we have for this week's episode of Faith and Culture. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, if you want more news from a Christian perspective, head on over to cbnnews.com and also subscribe to this podcast, the Faith and Culture podcast. You can listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. We have new episodes every week. Thank you so much, and God bless you.